Hi, this is King Harris, and this is Slow County Today, and we have a very special guest with us. Over the phone, you hear him every morning on KVEC Morning News, every hour, in the form of an almanac, and it's called W.B. Ward's Almanac, and we run it every morning, and it's full of historical facts, some mundane, some very important that you'd expect. And we'd like to welcome to the show W.B. Ward. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I've got an ex-wife and a TV, and they both work, so life is good.
Well, that's good. Let me ask you the first question.
Okay.
What is W.B. stand for?
Not much.
Not much.
Well, I'll tell you, the first name is William. And the middle name is, like yourself, I was blessed with a name that I'd rather not be called by, so I choose not to. I use my initials.
Just W.B.?
Yep, that's it.
I mean, and that's what people refer to you as.
Yeah, and that way, when somebody writes me a check, there's very little possibility of them misspelling my name.
Well, at least they write you a check.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, tell me about your history. It says, in looking at your website, which is wbward.com, it says you are an accomplished almost everything. So what did you want to be when you grew up?
Actually, as a child, it was my dream to become an astronaut, but when I passed 5'11", I found out I was no longer qualified. I've always loved to fly, I would have loved to have been in outer space, and it was on my, I believe it was my 7th birthday when America first walked in space, so I kind of looked at that as NASA's gift to me, but that was what I wanted to be when I was a kid.
So how did you get into, I guess you'd call it a journalistic entertainment field?
Ooh, I like that term. I haven't heard that one.
Well, you can do both.
Well, let's see. How did I get into that? That's a great question. I was looking, at the time I had a show that I toured with, and I was looking for some kind of way to help market what WBWard.com was online at that time, but it had a totally different focus because it focused on the show that I performed. And as a way of trying to market that, I offered Ward's Daily Almanac as a daily email subscription, which, by the way, is still available to this date. That started back in the year 2001. Due to the fact that a number of years later I suffered 2 strokes, I'm no longer able to perform live as I was performing at the time. So my focus changed from doing that to actually really concentrating on writing the almanac, because I've always, as a result of having been in radio for ever since Marconi invented the device, I've always had a love for trivia and history anyway. I started really focusing on that, and that turned into the radio series, which, by the way, KVEC has a special place in my heart in San Luis Obispo, because I don't think you guys knew this, but you were actually station number 2 to ever sign up to begin airing the broadcast. So you guys actually have a little bit of history with me as well, whether you knew that or not. But I started focusing on that, so I guess everything kind of revolved around the 2 strokes that I had.
Well, tell me about those, because you don't seem to be, by looking at your very dapper picture, by the way, you don't seem to be all that old.
I just turned 55.
That's what I mean.
Well, I tell you, it's the oldest I've ever been, so by golly, I consider that ancient.
How did you get 2 strokes?
Just lucky, I guess. My body just decided, okay, you are now in your 50s. It's time to start shutting things down. And I went to the doctor one morning thinking I had a pinched nerve because I'd lost feeling in my left leg. And they said, nope, you need to get to the hospital. And I said, okay, let me go home and straighten up some stuff. And they said, well, no, you need to get to the hospital like now. And I found out at the time I was having that stroke. And about a couple of years after that, I had number 2. So here I am, 55 years old. I have 2 strokes against me. My only wish is that life is not like a baseball game.
Really? You have 2 strokes, and how did they affect you?
Actually, as far as strokes go, I came out very, very, very well. The worst thing that I have physically now is the fact that from the knees down, I don't have feeling in either of the legs, and therefore I have to walk with a cane now. But as far as strokes are concerned, I really count my blessings because I still have pretty much control of myself physically. I don't have any slurred speech, and I know that's a very common thing of stroke victims. And there are some people who would argue that that's not such a good thing in my case, but I was very thankful that I would have that. When I was recovering from the strokes, I really began brushing up on my musical abilities because it was kind of therapy for me at the time. As a result of that, I produced 5 CDs of piano music. So everything that I've pretty much accomplished in the last few years were directly related to having suffered those strokes.
Well, that's very, very interesting. Now, so you're an accomplished pianist. Is that the only instrument you play?
No. Actually, I play several instruments. We counted one time. And don't read too much into this because it's really not as phenomenal as what I think some people think it is. But we stopped counting when we hit the 30 mark as far as how many instruments that I play.
Really? And how did you get all that done in your short period of time?
Well, I've always played music all of my life. I started playing piano when I was like 3 or 4. And later on, I took up cello when I was, I think, in the 4th grade. I became a trained cellist. A concert cellist by the time I was in junior high school. But I just learned at an early age what some instruments had in common with others. Like, for instance, the cello, although the notes are different, they are tuned to C, G, D, and A. The intervals of the pitches are the same on a violin, which is G, D, A, and E. So the basic fingering is the same. And then I found out a mandolin is tuned exactly the same as a violin. So I was able to play mandolin based on the fingerings of a violin. And since I already played piano, I picked up an accordion and a xylophone and basically anything with a keyboard pattern. So it really wasn't, it's not because I'm just this incredibly talented person that allows me to play over 30 instruments. It's just that I figured out what some instruments have in common with a whole bunch of others, and I was able to pick up different instruments along the way just based on that.
That's amazing. Now, so you have, and I looked at your website, you have several CDs, one seasonal about Christmas and everything else. You put these together. And is the only place you can get them on your website, or do you have them in, say, like Amazon?
Yes, they're available both on WBWard.com, and they're also available on Amazon.com. I've been told, don't hold my feet to the fire, but I have been told you can find them on other stores' websites like Walmart and Barnes & Noble. I know my books are available on BarnesandNoble.com, but I'm not too sure about the CDs. I have been told that, but so far that's the extent of my knowledge on that.
So that's it. Does that take up a lot of your time?
Almost none, because since I have the CDs are already recorded, I just kind of sit back and let them do what they do. The most involved I am with my music at all is once a week on my Facebook page. I post a video of the recordings. That's set to the montage of pictures, so it's kind of like a glorified slideshow. But once a week I'll post those. But really, that's about as involved with the music as I am right now. I haven't played. I haven't played musically anywhere in a long time, but that's about the extent of my involvement.
Well, you're involved in a lot of other things. I guess the primary thing that you do is your almanac, right?
Yes, I'm really, really focused on that right now.
Let me ask you a question about that. I'm a rock and roll collector, and so you add a lot of birthdays or celebrations or beginnings or endings or arrivals, say, of the Beatles or whatever on this day, yada, yada. And sometimes you can't play their music, and sometimes you can. I heard you do Fleetwood Mac the other day.
Yes.
Is that because of licensing or something?
Partly, yeah. I found out that as long as I'm talking about a particular song, a great example of this would be the song Happy Birthday to You. A lot of people don't know that song is still covered by copyright by the Hill family up in, I think, in Illinois. So you really can't use Happy Birthday to You on anything without paying royalties. Unless You can play a portion of it in public domain as long as you have a reason for doing it. Like, for instance, I covered the birthday of the Hill Sisters, the two ladies who wrote the song "Happy Birthday to You," and so I talked about that directly. In with that, in accordance with our copyright laws, I could use the song fairly and as public domain as long as I was talking about it. But if I'm talking about a birthday, say of King Harris, for instance, I can't play "Happy Birthday" with that, because then I'm crossing over the line of the copyright infringement.
Right, and you'd have to pay royalty. So in some cases you do, and in some other cases you don't, right?
Exactly.
Right, and depending on what it's used for. It's a very interesting. Now, where do you get your information? I mean, I know now there's the internet, certainly, but where do you get your information for who was born, birthdays, celebrations, historical points? Where does that all come from? Does that take up a lot of your time?
It takes up a huge amount of time, and because I get it from a very variety of sources. Of course, the internet is the springboard of it. You have websites like Wikipedia, History.com, and things like that. So I use that as a starting point, but I don't use it as an ending point. If you use just the internet as your research tool and nothing else, that's like going to a smorgasbord somewhere and ordering only a salad, because you're really missing out on the main course if that's all that you do. So I also reference hundreds of books. If you ever get a copy of one of the books of the Almanac series, you'll see in the back of the book like 9 or 10 pages single-spaced of books and periodicals that I have also researched for that particular edition.
So this happens every single day? I mean, weekends as well?
I do this. I work on this thing 7 days a week. Every morning I get up at 3 a.m. And I begin working on the Almanac. I produce a few episodes of Ward's Daily Almanac, the broadcast series, and then I begin immediately researching, revamping, and updating the Almanac, because history is a fluid and moving critter. So it needs constant supervision.
Now, who chooses, I imagine you do, the subjects of your almanac?
That would be entirely me. I'm strictly a one-person operation. I have no research staff. I have no other assistants. I'm a single dude. I live by myself in almost total seclusion. I know that I'm so afraid. My biggest fear in life is that someday I'm going to be one of my neighbors is going to be quoted as saying, "He was such a quiet man." That makes me nervous. But I spend almost all of my waking moments working on the Almanac in some fashion or another. It starts at 3 in the morning, and I work on that till about 10 in the morning. Then I go off and I do a 10-hour-a-day job for a day job. So, I mean, my schedule's pretty well taken up.
What's your day job?
I work for a satellite entertainment distribution company.
Okay, so with all that going on, how do you have time to market all this?
I make the time. Granted, I am very busy, and I have to stay on top of things. All of that, plus something that you didn't find on the website. I'm also co-host and a producer of a talk show that's broadcast on the internet that focuses on professional wrestling, because I have a history in that industry. And as a matter of fact, tonight we're recording our next podcast, which will be a 1 hour episode tonight. So with all that combined with everything else, I'm pretty busy.
Well, no kidding. Professional wrestling. How'd you get into that?
I started that when I was working at a radio station in a little town called Muskogee, Oklahoma. This is many, many years back. For you professional wrestling fans, you may remember an organization out of Dallas called WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling. And they hired me to be their ring announcer whenever they traveled into Oklahoma. So I got to work with some of the great classics of professional wrestling. I've worked with the Von Erichs. I've worked with the Freebirds. There was a referee at the time by the name of Bronco Luvich. I got to work with him. I worked with Andre the Giant. So I had a great little fun career there. It didn't last very long, but boy, I sure had a good time.
Boy, and you met some incredible people, and that's kind of a unique sport.
Yes, it is. Andre the Giant, he was absolutely, the only thing larger than Andre the Giant was his heart. I mean, this guy was just an absolute sweetheart of a man, very nice man to get along with, and back in the dressing room, he was just as kind as could be. Whenever he went out into the ring, he put on his heel face and became the bad guy, but boy, when he was backstage, he was just awesome. He handed me his class ring and I could wear his class ring almost as a bracelet. This guy was just huge, but he was a wonderful person.
Oh, that's terrific, WB. Now tell me about the books. Are they monthly?
Each book, we have one book for each month of the year. The first one is called, appropriately, the Book of January, the Book of February, Book of March, and so on. I'm currently working on the Book of November, so I've got almost a series completed. After that, I'll be doing a giant anthology consisting of the best of the best of the best. And because somebody once told me that they said that they have the copy of the books, and they said, well, usually when I read them, I'm in that special room in the house when nature calls. So the anthology book is going to be based upon total bathroom reading. As a matter of fact, we've already decided and we've already registered the title, The Book of John, to be applied for my anthology book.
That's a good idea because I hate to admit it, but that's a great place for something like that.
Whenever the king is on the throne, that'd be a great reading place.
I'll remember that. Now tell me about your Kickstarter program.
Okay, now this is possibly the most aggressive thing I have ever done, and thank you very much for asking about that. Kickstarter is a great website, and I've checked them out thoroughly. This is a very secure thing that a person can take part in. Whenever somebody has a project that they're working on, they can put up their project on Kickstarter and give people the opportunity to take part by pledging a dollar amount to help with the project. Now, this is not an investment. This is nothing that people get money back on return. This is just a way where people can look at something and they go, gee, that looks like a worthwhile project. I want to help this guy do that. So we do have a Kickstarter project up, and you can get a link to that just by going to the website at wbward.com. You look for Kickstarter. I mean, it stands out like a cockroach on a white carpet. You just click on that link and it takes you over. There's a 5-minute video on there with me, and I'm sorry about that, but I was the only person available, explaining what the project is and how you can pledge. You can pledge as little as $1. You can pledge up to $100,000 if it so moves you.
Tell me about you appearing in person. Do you do that as much as you used to?
Not as much, and I would love to do it even more. I have a seminar called Footprints.
Right.
It's classified as a motivational seminar. I refer to it as a realizational seminar because it focuses around the ability people have of affecting other people's lives just through normal things that they do every day. Because believe it or not, you can change the world with just the simplest little tasks. Like, for instance, there was a 5-year-old kid who was just absolutely fascinated with little devices, and when he turned 5, his dad gave him a compass for his birthday. Ordinarily, people would think, oh, yeah, that's kind of sweet, that's kind of cool, and of course, the little kid was just fascinated by this magic little magnetic dial that just knew exactly where north was and would always point in one direction no matter where he stood. Well, that little gesture actually affected the entire world because that little man who received that for his 5th birthday went on to achieve great status as one of the greatest physicists of all time, and that would, of course, be the one and only Albert Einstein. So little tiny gestures like that along your life path that you take can have these dramatic effects on other people, if not the entire world.
You sound like a very positive man. Is this part of your plan? I mean, is this by meeting people, and I imagine you are on the telephone or meet people a lot. What do you tell people when you go out?
Well, the one thing that I always remind people is, since I deal with history and I deal with the way other people have affected other people, I remind, and the whole point of the seminar, and I hope the whole point of the books and the almanac itself, if nothing else, is to remind people of be very, very careful of your activities today, because your activities today will create the history of tomorrow.
And so you're suggesting to people that live life now to the fullest.
Absolutely. And be careful the footprints you leave, because there's one positive thing, one thing about footprints that will positively happen every time. No matter where you leave the footprints, somebody's going to follow them. Regardless of the direction you pointed those footprints, somebody is going to follow them. So watch out where you walk and the way that you walk through your life, because I guarantee you, somebody's watching and somebody's following.
And there are consequences, and there's karma.
Big time. So big time karma.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in karma coming back, just like anybody else who's lived on this planet for any length of time at all. I've had karma come back and bite me on the rear end a couple of times. I've seen it happen dozens of times to other people as well. So, I mean, that's it's kind of nature's little way of kind of giving me a reality check every now and then and say, hey, Mr. Ward, straighten up over here, dude.
You are also involved in I would say indirectly, maybe I'm wrong, with veterans.
Oh yeah, one of my all-time favorite charities would be Blue Star Mothers. This is just a magnificent organization because they take care of our troops while they're overseas, and they take care of them in ways that one person usually doesn't ever think of. You know, like for instance, they know that these people, when they go overseas, sometimes they're fighting for our freedom, sometimes they're helping keep the peace or whatever. And all politics aside, these people are in places where they are in harm's way and they need certain things. You know, like for instance, flea collars. Of all the things I would have never thought of would be sending somebody a flea collar as a gift. But whenever they're walking through the deserts or in jungles and stuff like that, they need something around their ankles to help keep the insects off of their legs. And they take care of little creature comfort things like this that the military just does not provide their soldiers on a regular basis. So organization like that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm an Air Force veteran. My son serves as an active Army sergeant right now. So that's something that is very near and dear to my life. Anything veteran related, especially the Blue Star Mothers.
How did you get into the Air Force? And was this a little before Vietnam?
Actually, it was a little bit afterwards.
Right.
I'm only 55, but
I just realized that when I said that.
That's okay. When I got in the Air Force was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I was only in for one tour. When I served the time, we were at peace. I never saw combat or anything like that, and I have the greatest respect of the world for any veteran who has, like, again, referring back to my son who served in Iraq and also served for about 5 years over in Korea. He has seen his share of action just like anybody else. So, I mean, that's just something that's so near and dear to me. As a matter of fact, on my Facebook on 4th of July, I intend on posting a video that I created a couple of years back based on the Johnny Cash release of the Ragged Old Flag. And stuff like this just really draws a tear to my eye.
You are a very busy guy. Any projects you're planning for the future other than the ones we've talked about?
Actually, this is really about the only arrow that I have in my quill right now. I'm always doing things like voiceovers, for commercials, or doing voiceovers for like people who need a recording on their music on hold and stuff like that. But other than that, I'm really focused on this almanac project because I would love to get this off the ground. And with the money that's raised from Kickstarter, that's going to do away with the need of going to work every day on a day job and let me focus on this. Because let me tell you, when it comes to this book releasing one book is big enough, but I'm going to be releasing 13 books simultaneously, and we're going to have to do some massive promotions because it's my goal to get this in every public library, every school library, and as many bookstores as possible from coast to coast.
So these will be not only on Kindle, but they'll be in book form.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm an old school on that. I like Kindle. Personally, I prefer the good old-fashioned book with actual pages in it. And on the website, the first few books are already available. And I found out, I know that they're available on BarnesandNoble.com. I've seen them there. I've seen them on Amazon.com. I don't have the foggiest clue as to why, but I actually found them on a website in India, of all places. And why they're over there, you got me. But I found these literally on websites around the world.
Well, it doesn't surprise me they're in India, because usually when you make a phone call these days to some agency, corporation, or whatever, you get somebody who's in India.
Well, I hope they enjoy reading about our history. I do focus on world history, not just the United States, but of course, the biggest lion's share of it is United States history. So if it doesn't bother them, it certainly doesn't bother me.
Now, WB, how many radio stations are you connected with currently?
I think right at about 35. The two most recent acquisitions was, I've been told, and I haven't been able to confirm this yet, which is kind of frustrating, but I've been receiving emails from Stuttgart, Germany, from some of our members of our armed forces saying they're hearing me on Armed Forces Radio, and I wish I could confirm that somehow. But I've received more than a few emails from people over there, so I presume it's true. But I recently also found out I'm on a station in the Virgin Island, WEVI, I think are the call letters of it. And of all the places that it could possibly have me come and do a live show, boy, I would love to do one like down there.
Well, that would be an appropriate vacation, that's for sure. So you're constantly looking for more radio stations to sell your product. Because the Ward's Daily Almanac, besides the fact that it informs, entertains, or hopefully entertains, and gives a plenty of what I call, well, I'll be darned moments every morning, it does serve as a promotional device for the website. Well, it's a surprise every morning because you really never know what you're going to come up with. And some of the things, and I mentioned the word mundane, and I got that from your website. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you come up with, I never knew or either forgot or it's a new turn of history that I was unaware of.
You know, I've always looked at history as being like a landscape. What we've studied in history books and the important things in life would be like the mountain ranges and the giant boulders. You know, things like the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which, by the way, did not occur on July 4th. That was actually a lengthy process that took a few months. Or the attack on Pearl Harbor, of course, most recently, the attack on the World Trade Center in 2001. These are all huge events, yes, and they are included within the almanac because I learned the hard way. I can't, on December 7th, if I don't mention Pearl Harbor, I get all kinds of nasty emails, so I've got to mention those. However, I do like to focus on the little grains of sand because the little grains of sand is actually what makes our landscape up and gives it the personality. Things like the lady who was the first person to receive the very first Social Security check. This morning in the book of November, I was putting in an item about a guy by the name of Jules Leotard, who was the first flying acrobat in a circus, and it was for him that he designed a real tight-fitting suit to show off his muscles, and it was his name, Leotard, that is actually assigned to the dance wear that is presently used.
I didn't know that either. It's a surprise a minute. Ultimately, it seems to me like you're having a pretty good time.
I love this. This is just like going on a hunt for gold every day, and every day I come up with these nuggets of gold that I do discover that has directly affected us in some way or another. And you just look at it and you're just in awe, thinking, "Well, I'll be darned! I didn't know it started that way." In the book series, one thing I can do in the books that I wish I had the ability to do on radio, but it's a little difficult, are the photographs that I include. Because one photograph that I found that I was just so impressed with is a picture of Hoover Dam. Now that it doesn't sound terribly impressive, except for the fact on this photograph the lake is completely empty and it's on the side of Hoover Dam that you never see. It's actually the full-length shot of the Hoover Dam on the upstream side of it before the lake was filled up, and I just thought that was the coolest thing I ever saw.
No kidding. Well, WB, it's been just great talking to you, and we sure appreciate your almanac every morning here on KVEC Morning News. And we wish you the best of luck. And don't hang up yet.
Okay.
But I will say goodbye, and thanks so much for being with us and providing us with a little bit of life's experience.
It's a great day to be in San Luis Obispo.
Thank you, WB. Hang on. This is Slow County Today.